Hey guys, the Firebird is here. It's just me. My brother couldn't be here today because he's on a top secret mission with the cool name Agent S. Only people from my Discord server will get that joke. Anyways, in case you haven't done so already, join our Discord server. Anyways, these are the jokes. I hope you're enjoying them. Now, about a year ago, I did a video talking about all of the Pacific Rim Jaegers, and when I released that video, for the first 2 weeks, it didn't do that well. It had like less than 2,000 views or something like that. And a year later, it has 68,000. So YouTube being weird again. But since Netflix recently announced a new Pacific Rim anime, and it seems that there has been quite a bit of interest for my last Pacific Rim video, I'm guessing it's time to give it another go to this very underrated franchise, I would say. And since I did a video talking about all the Jaegers, I think it makes sense that I talk about all the kaijus. Keep in mind that I'm not only gonna go through the movies, but I'll go over some novels, comics, video games, exclusive kaijus and stuff like that. It's gonna be a bit of a long list, and typically I do the whole, which characters are alive, which characters are dead kind of thing, but all of the kaijus in this list are dead. So, spoilers, I guess? But this is still gonna be a pretty entertaining list. I'm gonna tell you what category they are, if they have any distinguishing features or abilities, I'll let you know, and what Jaeger killed them if we have that information. So without further ado, let's begin. Hey guys, it's post-editing fire. So, the recording for this video is over an hour long. I feel like this is gonna be, at best, ending up being 2 parts, or at worst, maybe 3. So, yeah. And also, on my Discord server, we had a little contest. We had 2 contests actually. So in this part 1, I'm gonna shout out the first contest, which is the Eraser Duo contest, where basically I got a bunch of you guys to make fan art of me and Squeaker. We got this first art by Fred and the Boys, which is just me and Squeaker fighting using lightsabers as erasers. The joke is that I threw erasers at Squeaker during one of his live streams, okay? It was funny, you guys should have been there. I do like the tagline more than the art itself though. Fire Wars, Revenge of the Erasers. Kinda has a nice ring to it. Then we got this one by Sideways. It's over, Squeaker! I have the high ground! You overestimate my laziness! I love it. I mean, it's kind of bad, but that adds to the charm of it, and it's amazing. Good job, Sideways. And the contest winner, Night-kun, who made this drawing of me and Squeaker as assassins? This looks very good. I actually really like the art style and the drawing you made here. It's shockingly amazing. So, Night-kun, thank you for doing this. I love this. It's gonna be saved forever on my computer until it crashes or something, because that always happens. Big ups to you, my man. You win the contest. You win everything. If you have a video suggestion or something you want me to do in the future, let me know in the Discord, and I'll do it in your honor, since you won the contest and stuff. So, big ups to you. Anyways, moving on to the video. So, our first kaiju is Jamarashi, and we don't really have a visual of this guy. In the movie, Nidon Geisler, the guy who's basically obsessed with kaijus and basically tries to destroy humanity in the second movie, has a tattoo of this kaiju. He was a category 3 kaiju who was killed by Gypsy Danger and another unknown Jaeger. And this screenshot is the best look that we have of him, so yeah. Next up we got Bojanoi. I hope I'm saying it right. Kind of sounds like a Bionicle name. So we don't really have an image of this guy, so use your imagination. But what we do know him is that he fought against Cherno Alpha and Eden Assassin. He ended up killing Eden Assassin, but supposedly got taken out by Cherno Alpha. From the novel's descriptions, he's basically a giant frog who has some kind of weird acne problem. I don't know, the description's kind of weird. Next up, we got Berositor. Now, Berositor is a simulated kaiju, which we don't know if he's based off an actual kaiju that came from the breach, or if this one was created by, by the Pan Pacific Defense Corps to, help train up-and-coming Jaeger pilots. This guy was killed in the simulation against Gypsy Danger, but whether this guy really existed or not is a bit weird. But I'm gonna put him on this list just in case, because if I don't, I'm gonna get people complaining. Next up we got Tundra, and just like the name suggests, this guy has ice powers. He's one of the 3 kaijus that are featured in the Pacific Rim Shadow Dome Strike game. We do know that this guy actually killed the Jaeger November Ajax. That's the one from Uprising, the one in the movie, the one that appears really early on, the one no one cares about. Yeah, I thought that was interesting. But this guy gets killed off by Saber Athena later in the game. Next up we got Trespasser, which is probably one of the more more popular kaijus in the franchise just because he's the first kaiju that emerges from the breach and attacks humanity. Now something notable is that this kaiju appeared and there were no Jaegers to fight against him. He actually didn't get killed by tanks, jets, missiles, and human gunfire. Unlike what the movie will lead you to believe, this guy actually got killed by 3 nuclear warheads. Yes, it took a lot of collateral damage to take this guy down. That's a common misconception that some people have. Next we got Tortuga, who's a kaiju who never made it into the Pacific Rim movie. He's on the Pacific Rim draft script and has a whole potential backstory that was planned to be used. We don't really have any visible images of him, just a description which says that he had a 3-pronged mouth that opens like a flower and is armed with a tongue with a barbed tip that can tear through Jaeger armor that acts like a harpoon. Which it's kinda cool and kinda reminds me of the Demogorgon. I'm probably gonna have a picture of the Demogorgon on screen just to represent this guy. Next up we got Thunderhead, and like the name suggests, this guy controls lightning. In the game itself, he engages into a fight against Bracer Phoenix and ends up getting killed by him. He also participated on the destruction of November Ajax. Next up we got Tentalus. We don't really know much about this guy except that he probably has tentacles, henceforth the name. All that we know is that he emerged from the breach in 2022, oh my god, that's only a year away, and attacked the Chinese Sea, but he was killed by Crimson Typhoon. Our next kaiju is Tengu, who's also one of those kaijus that were from the original Pacific Rim draft script, who unfortunately got caught. Not much is known about this guy and we don't really have an official image or anything. His description tells us that he had dozens of heads resembling that of a viper and a bat with long necks. And that's literally about it. But he is a category 5, so that's kinda cool I guess. Next up we got Taranais, who's a kaiju that emerged from the breach in 2022 and got killed by Striker Eureka. Yep, that's literally all we know about him, and much like many of the other kaijus in this list, we don't have any visuals of him. What's up with the kaijus not having images? I'm pretty sure almost all the Jaegers I covered last time have more images than these guys. Next up we got Taranais. Tarantulas? Spider. It's a kaiju that emerged from the breach in 2024. And again, much like the previous two, we have no information about this guy. All that we know is that he got killed by Cherno Alpha. Tail Spitter is a kaiju that emerged from the breach in 2024 and got killed by Crimson Typhoon. No images of this guy currently exist. Alright, finally, we're back to images. Our next kaiju is Spinejackal. He attacked Australia and the Jaegers Vulcan Spectre and Striker Eureka were sent to destroy him. The fight got heated, but eventually both Jaegers were able to kill him and put a stop to him before any more damage could be made. Up next we got a fan favorite, Slathern, who, in case you don't know, he's actually taller than the mega-kaiju from Uprising, which, that's kinda cool. I wonder who will win a fight. Guys, who will win a fight, Slathern or the mega-kaiju? Debate all of that in the comments down below. But personally, Slathern is my favorite. We saw him in the movie, he participated in the defense of the breach against Gypsy Danger and Striker Eureka, and eventually got killed by Gypsy Danger after the robot used his reactor to burn through Slathern's chest and his internal organs, killing him. RIP Slathern, you will be missed. Next up we got Shriketorn, who's a category 4 kaiju and one of the 3 kaiju that attacks the city of Mega Tokyo in 2035. He appears in Uprising, and after having a short engagement with the other Jaegers, him and the other 2 kaijus are combined together to form the mega-kaiju. Up next we got Scunner, a category 4 kaiju who appeared towards the end of the first Pacific Rim movie. In the movie he gave Striker Eureka a bit of a hard time, but was killed by the latter once its pilots activated a thermonuclear bomb on its back, which ended up killing Scunner and wounding Slathern. Our next kaiju is Scissure, who was actually the 4th kaiju to attack humanity. By this time there were no Jaegers around, so the military managed to lure the kaiju outside the city and then kill him with 2 nuclear bombs. The attack managed to kill Scissure, but at the expense of half the city of Sydney, Australia. Next up we got Rippers. The Rippers are kaiju hybrids with the ability to manipulate kaiju DNA. You might be more familiar with these guys from Uprising, and you also probably didn't even know they had a name. They're the swarm of kaiju insects that basically served as makeshift stitches to merge all 3 kaijus together into the mega-kaiju. Which, while we're at it, I can't help but wonder that why none of these guys do something about that. Like what, did they pull a Dragon Ball and they just wanted to see the kaiju's next transformation? Come on guys, you never watched TVC? Next up we got Reckoner. Now Reckoner is actually a kaiju to attack humanity. We don't really know much about him, but he does appear in the first Pacific Rim movie. We actually see his skeleton in China, where we see that it has been turned into some kind of makeshift temple for a group of kaiju worshippers. Our next kaiju is Raider? Right? People are gonna bash me in the comments down below. It's a kaiju that emerged from the breach in 2018. He was promptly killed by Cherno Alpha in combat. Next up we have Category 4 Raiju. You might be more familiar with him from the first Pacific Rim movie. He is that weird kaiju that like opens up his face and to reveal a second face underneath and moves really fast underwater. I actually really like this guy. His design might look a bit too different from the other kaijus, but I think that makes him pretty unique and stand out. He was killed by Gypsy Danger when the latter used his sword to bisect Raiju in half, taking advantage of the kaiju's momentum. Next up we got Raijin, who's probably my favorite kaiju from the second Pacific Rim movie. I think his design looked pretty cool. Raijin is a Category 5 kaiju and one of the 3 kaiju that attacks the city of Mega Tokyo in 2035. He has the unique ability to take kinetic energy and transfer it back to other parts of his body, like his arm, to use it to hit back at his enemies. Something that the mega-kaiju also inherits. Eventually, him and the other 2 kaijus were merged together to form the mega-kaiju, and that's pretty much where his story ends. Next up we got Ragnarok, who in my opinion is one of the more weird kaijus we have seen. He's a Category 2 and attacks Tokyo, Japan in 2016. But he has 6 arms. His design looks less kaiju-ish and more, you know, humanoid than the rest. I'm not against that, it's a bit weird though. He gets killed by Tacit Ronin in Victory Alpha. Next up we got Ragnar, who's a kaiju that emerged from the breach in 2024. He was killed by Strike Eureka and that's literally all we know about him. Next up we got Pharaoh, who's the name of an unused kaiju concept from the Pacific Rim draft script. He was supposed to be a Category 5 kaiju. He was described to be a combination of the Egyptian scarab and the bull, with the mandibles and horns of a rhino beetle, which kinda sounds pretty cool. Unfortunately, he never got to appear in the movie and, you know, he's just an unused concept for a kaiju. Okay, now this is not really a kaiju, but I still feel like I should add this, and that's the kaiju skin mite. Now the skin mites, you might have seen them from the first Pacific Rim movie. They're basically kaiju parasites that latch to their bodies and like, they're not particularly aggressive. Like, plenty of humans just handle these guys just fine. They seem to just mind their own business and not really do much. Which leads me to wonder whether these kaiju were sent through the breach by the precursors on purpose, or whether they attached to the kaijus themselves during the breach without the precursors intending for that to be the case. That little detail still remains unknown. Next up we got Kaiseb, who's the 3rd kaiju to attack humanity. Much like the first kaijus that attacked humanity, this one was killed by a nuclear strike at the expense of half the city he attacked. His remains were later removed from the city and relocated onto an aircraft carrier. Next up we got Itag, who's a kaiju that attacks Tokyo, Japan in 2016. He's a kaiju with 6 arms, 4 of which are appendages with curved blades and 3 eyes on each side of its face. He's also one of those rare humanoid looking kaijus. He was killed by Coyote Tango and Tacit Ronin with much difficulty. Next up we got Invidia. Invidia stands at the height of a skyscraper. It resembles a praying mantis with long legs that keep it elevated above the ground, and a head likened to that of a snake. Invidia has transparent wings that can create vibrations in the air and create currents of wind strong enough to lift or move debris or objects in its path. Its skin is armored in such a way that heavy ordnance does not harm it. This is one of those unused kaiju concepts from the Pacific Rim draft script. This particular kaiju was meant to be killed, by Gypsy Danger. Our next kaiju is Insurrection, who we actually see in Pacific Rim Uprising in that really dumb scene where the girl's parents die in a very stupid way. Now, fun fact, this guy actually got killed by Striker Eureka and Hydra Corinthian. When we see him in the movie be shot by missiles, supposedly those are from Striker Eureka. So for those of you who are like massive fans of Striker Eureka, that's your one Striker Eureka cameo. Now you know. Next up we have Handun, who sounds an awful like the name of a certain Pokemon, who's the second kaiju to attack humanity. He was killed by a tactical nuclear strike, and since he's one of the first kaijus to attack humanity, he doesn't really have a set category. Next up we got Hound. No, not that Hound. A hound that we have no idea how he looks like because this is one of those novel-only kaijus. He emerged on the breach in 2024 and got killed by Striker Eureka. Next up we got the Horn Kaiju, and that's literally his name. That's how the Pacific Rim Wiki describes this guy, which honestly I can't say I blame. This kaiju was seen briefly in the Pacific Rim Uprising movie when he was basically trying to emerge off a breach that was created by the drone kaijus. The Horn Kaiju unfortunately gets killed once the drones are shot down and the breach is disrupted, cutting the kaiju in half. According to some producer statements, the lower half of this kaiju's body looks like a lobster. He was also meant to be either a category 4 or a 5, and he's apparently also the largest kaiju to be sent through a breach. So meaning that this guy is potentially larger than Slather, and keep that in mind. Next up we got another unused kaiju design, and that's Himantura. And yes, you guys are looking at this right. This thing looks creepy. Like, look at it. It's very humanoid and it looks to have a human face. It's probably the most alien out of all the kaijus I've seen so far. The concept artist described this guy as a cross between a stingray and a switchblade, and it shows. This guy's a kaiju concept and therefore not really part of the Pacific Rim universe, but I thought it was interesting to mention because this guy has such a weird look to it. I don't know, what do you guys think? Should this be an actual kaiju design? Like, should this be, be made official and added into the canon? Humanoid looking kaijus are a bit of a stretch for me. Like, I don't want to see them too often. I'm fine with a few of them, but this looks a step too far. Next up we got Hidoi, who's one of those noble only kaijus. All that we know about this guy is that he was killed by Crimson Typhoon. Next up we got Hardship. And I just want to point out, I love how the Pacific Rim Wiki lists his description. Hardship is a kaiju. No for a second I thought I misclicked and was on the Jaeger page. Now, Hardship was killed by Romeo Blue, and his likeness was later used in a shoe line alongside Romeo's Blue as a part of a merchandise gambit to promote the Jaegers to the public and commercials. Which is actually one of those little details that I actually do like from the original Pacific Rim, how the world was slowly built around the kaijus and it changes. The whole shoe thing was actually pretty cool. It's the little details that count. Next up we got Hammerjaw, who the Pacific Rim Wiki lists as a kaiju and nothing else. Dr. Newton Geisler actually has a tattoo of him on the film. It's not very visible, but he gets mentioned, so therefore he gets a spot here on this list. I'm back again. So the video is longer than expected. We are about half the way through this list, so this is gonna be a two-part video. I hope you guys don't mind. Let me know in the comments down below which one of these kaiju is your favorite, and I'll see you guys in part 2 whenever that gets released. Hopefully this year. Anyways, bye. Anyways guys, before we go, shout out to our amazing Patreon, TrueBlue712, Stitch Productions, Stephanie Ballard, Christopher Prime, Predator King Hunter Plays, Mario Gordon, Allspark Studios, and huge shout out to the absolute madman himself, Jordan the Great, and to our even bigger Big Balls Patreon, XNooter23, who donated what I can only describe as a amount of money. I'll leave you guys to figure out how much. Thank you guys for your donation. It's extremely generous and extremely appreciated. It helps me keep the show going and feed Squeaker. Thank you guys for your support. I tip my fedora in gratitude and put on my Supreme Gentleman hats in your honor. Link to our Patreon and their channels will be in the description down below for you guys to check out. A lot of these guys actually do Transformers content, so it's worth checking them out, cause most likely than not, if you like my content, then you're probably gonna like theirs too. And if you guys wanna shout out your subs, all you gotta do is donate to our Patreon. By donating to our Patreon, you get quite a few rewards. You get a shout out in my videos, you can collab in some of my videos, you can request your own video topic, exclusive roles on my Discord server. So yeah, it's a pretty good deal. But keep in mind that it's entirely optional, because freedom is the right of all sentient beings. Anyways guys, thank you so much for donating, it's much appreciated, and if you guys want to donate, you know what to do. And I will see you guys on the next video. Stay safe guys.